Hey. Hey, dog. You don't want to go? Give me 1 second. Today is Thursday, April 22nd, 2016, and this is episode 12 of Due for a Win, the Atlantic City and Casino Biz podcast. My name is Craig Stone. Here as well is Kyle Askin.
Howdy.
So let's start with the news, the very fun and exciting news that I think we can just blow through really quickly because there's really not that much going on for once. We had a nice 2-week period of some compromise, but not a whole lot of action. So basically, where we left off was that Vincent Prieto, who's the Assembly Speaker in the New Jersey State Assembly, was trying to push his own bill that set up benchmarks for the city where they had a year to, basically if they missed some sort of benchmarks after a year, the city could take some actions. If they missed for a second year, those actions would get much more serious. And then now Steve Sweeney, who is the Speaker of the state, or not the Speaker, the State Senate President, basically has come back a little bit on his initial bill for the state takeover. And now he's setting 130-day benchmarks, which is obviously much shorter than a year. And it requires a 40% budget cut. And so one of the things in this bill one of the things in the description of this bill that keeps popping up is this idea that Atlantic City spends something like $6,700 per resident, and Christie and others have compared that to places like Newark and Camden that are more like $3,500 per resident. And so they're saying, like, look at this gross overspending when bigger cities are spending way less per resident. And I posted this on the Facebook group, which is basically, I don't have an economics degree. I can't make any claim to being an expert, but those comparisons seem just wholly ridiculous because Newark and Camden don't have millions of people a year coming to visit that are, using the infrastructure of the city and require services like police and, fire department and all that kind of stuff that visitors put a drain on, maybe not as much as residents, but to a significant degree. So obviously, 130 days, talking about something like a 40% budget cut, is this reasonable, do you think? Is that a real compromise, or is this just sort of saying, this will look like a compromise, but not really?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Clearly, Atlantic City is a very different city than Camden, than Newark, than really most other cities in New Jersey, with the exception of perhaps some of the shore cities. But just because that so much of what they do is tourism, so there's clearly a lot more people in the city that they have to support than just the residents. So it's not a reasonable thing. It's not something that Atlantic City could ever do, even if they wanted to. So, no.
So one big thing about this is that, and probably the main thing to glean from this is that this is the start of a compromise. So Chris Christie, the governor, had said he would not sign anything that was altered at all from the initial bill that had gone to the Senate floor and had passed. So now he seems to be softening on that a bit. Sweeney's coming in with alterations, so it seems like a compromise could be in the works. They haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's certainly worth watching, and it seems like some sort of compromise could be coming, and that this, whatever they're calling it, that's effectively a takeover. I think they're calling it a partnership or assistance for Atlantic City. Maybe they'll finally work something out, and it won't be as strict toward Atlantic City as the initial bill.
So, handicap it for me, Craig. What do you think the odds are that something gets done versus the odds that Atlantic City has to declare bankruptcy?
I don't think they'll let it happen. I don't think they'll let Atlantic City go bankrupt. So I think 90 or 95% that they get something done. Because once Sweeney moved a little bit toward the benchmarks and sort of said, oh, okay, the benchmark thing kind of basically sort of gives it some credence, right? And says, okay, we will give just a little bit. Once you've given that little bit, you can't let the deal blow up over this, I don't think. And it's not good for anybody in the Senate or the Assembly or the governor if Atlantic City declares bankruptcy, which you said last episode. So I think I'm going to say 90 or 95% that this gets done.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite that high. I wouldn't say 95%, but I do think it's very likely that a deal gets done. I'd say between 80 and 90%, maybe. But so something I've been thinking about, and something that we kind of touched on at the end of the last episode, and this is just my kind of crackpot theory, and you can tell me what you think, is that, I think that we both said last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago that we think the future is bright for Atlantic City. And so do you think part of this is that kind of all sides involved kind of think the same thing, that Atlantic City is going to have a much brighter future than they've had, the past 10 years or whatever, and that they all kind of want to have their name in there and be like, hey, look, we did this thing and we really turned Atlantic City around? When, that turnaround may just naturally happen because of the circumstances.
So that's kind of an optimistic view. I would probably take the more cynical view, which is that nobody wants to have their name on the list of people who were in the Senate or Assembly when Atlantic City totally went under. So I kind of think that if they are thinking that, then they probably have too short term of expectations of any kind of turnaround.
I mean, I don't know, though. So it's something else we talked about last episode, that all 8 casinos are doing reasonably well. Something that's not on the docket to talk about today that's come out is that it's looking, with every passing week, less and less likely that the people of New Jersey are going to pass the North Jersey casino bill. I mean, I think some more polling came out that makes it look even more unlikely than it looked, last time we talked about it. All the casinos have come out recently in the last couple of days and have said that they're looking to do quite a bit of hiring. These are the 8 casinos existing, plus there's going to be a 9th casino, in theory, that's going to be opening in a couple months. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just the eternal optimist in our show, and you're the pessimist.
That is possible. Another thing we talked about last episode was the lawsuit over the school payments in Atlantic City, and basically the judge in that case had kind of shut it down and said, well, I'm just going to defer to April 19th, which at that point the payment had already been made for the payroll, so it didn't really matter. So he officially tossed that lawsuit on April 19th, and Atlantic City actually turned around and decided to countersue the state for $33.5 million, which is basically the size of the hole in the budget that is left because Christie did not sign the payment in lieu of taxes bill. So that's the amount of money that would have gone to the city for this year's budget if they had passed the pilot bill. And the reason that Atlantic City is countersuing is they were approved by the state monitor to put this money in the budget, basically with the anticipation that the money would be there. And the anticipation that, hey, they've made the changes that Christie asked for in the pilot bill, so they're going to sign it. And so now, I don't know where that's going to go. My, again, probably cynical standpoint is that they probably aren't going to get very far in that. A town suing its state is probably doesn't have a high rate of success, but the $33.5 million is in casino redirected anticipated payment, or CRAP, and Atlantic City is now using that acronym, which is maybe the funniest part. And Amy S. Rosenberg from the Philly Inquirer and Christian Hedrick from the Press of Atlantic City both kind of giggled about this on Twitter about how they feel a sense of pride in their use of the crap acronym, and now it's sort of gaining mainstream traction. But I don't know where this is going to go. It's interesting that they're trying to do this because Christie's sort of used that $33.5 million as like, look at all the money, look at how much bigger the budget keeps getting in the future, and this is sort of the city's way of saying like, oh yeah, like you're the reason that budget's getting bigger because you left this hole in the budget. So I don't know if you have anything to add about these lawsuits. I don't think there's really too much to say, but maybe you disagree.
I think that this lawsuit is quite stupid. I mean, I don't know how you can sue someone because you said that they claim they would pass a bill and it didn't get passed. Just like I don't know how Chris Christie can sue Atlantic City for possibly not making some future payment that they haven't even missed yet. So I don't know. Both of them are dumb.
And to sue them to stop making a payment that they're legally required to make.
I don't know. So yeah, it's stupid. They're both stupid.
Yeah, the whole thing's ridiculous. Another thing that happened is that City Council President Marty Small took Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop, who keeps coming up, on a jitney tour of Atlantic City. And it's funny because Fulop this whole time has been mentioned frequently by Chris Christie as like the guy pulling the strings and keeping the takeover from happening because he wants to be the guy who's very pro-union come the gubernatorial election in New Jersey. And Steve Fulop's really kind of laughed that off and said like his obsession with me is hilarious. And then he shows up on a jitney tour with the city council president of Atlantic City, and all of a sudden it's just like, how can you say that it's ridiculous when now you, as the mayor of another town that is wholly unrelated to Atlantic City, are on a jitney tour? So the reason that they claim for the jitney tour is that Steve Fulop has been pro-casino and wanted a casino in Jersey City, and he wanted to come see Atlantic City and see what it's like and what the consequences are, possibly, of having casino gaming. Because one of the things that Guardian has said is, if you bring casino gaming, you're going to also have prostitution and other problems that we have here in Atlantic City, and homelessness and all that kind of stuff. So it struck me as a little weird because it kind of seemed like Marty Small, who is, obviously a huge representative of the city of Atlantic City, taking a mayor of another town on a tour to say, look how shitty our town looks. And that seemed like a really bad look to me. But if his intended result was to get Steve Fulop, who apparently is a very powerful person in politics, to decide that he no longer wanted a casino or decide that he was going to stop supporting North Jersey casinos, he may have gotten his wish, because Steve Fulop tweeted something effectively saying, now that I've seen the consequences, I have to rethink my position. He got hit with a lot of backlash, people saying, oh, he's a flip-flopper, and now, like, what does this change? And if you really don't want these jobs, somebody from Elizabeth said, if you don't want these jobs, we'll take these jobs in Elizabeth, which, good luck getting New Yorkers to go to Elizabeth, New Jersey, to go to a casino. But it seems strange. I think the big thing for what this means for North Jersey casinos, which, like you said, already doesn't have a lot of support, is that Jersey City is, I think, the second most populated city or third most populated city in New Jersey. So, and Stephen Fulop is very popular in Jersey City. So if he comes out against this strongly, I think a lot of people in this city that I live in Jersey City, are going to go with that. So I think it does hold some sway. At the end of the day, it probably doesn't, swing the referendum either way, but it just seemed kind of odd. And maybe the more interesting thing to talk about in reference to this podcast is just this idea that now we've had Guardian kind of, I don't want to say bad-mouthing Atlantic City, but sort of acknowledging the negative aspects, and then Marty Small taking Steve Fulop on a tour of, like, look at Shuttered, Revel, look at all the homeless people everywhere. It just seemed kind of weird. But I'll link to the article that goes much more detail. That's an Amy S. Rosenberg article. So that's 2 references to Amy S. Rosenberg already in this episode. So if you're playing the drinking game, you can go ahead and drink. Somebody should make the drinking game. Get on it, Facebook group. So what are your thoughts about taking someone on a tour of the a disaster tour of Atlantic City?
So I really only have one question, Craig. Was this tour led by the world-famous Atlantic City celebrity Jitney Guy?
I hope. So people were tweeting at him the entire time as if he was running it. And so that alone was great. I'm assuming he was not, but
yeah, I'm sure he was.
It was still a good read. But from that, moving totally away from the news, the politics, let's finish that talk up. We have some announcements of entertainment, if you call this entertainment. Atlantic City has announced 2 beach concerts for the summer, Florida Georgia Line and Toby Keith, which, if you're into diversity in your beach concerts, as far as, diversity of musical tastes, I don't know that this is bringing a lot of that, but, there's certainly a huge audience for this around Atlantic City, so they are attracting that audience. I'm sure they will be huge successes and get a ton of people there. So Toby Keith is going to perform July 23rd. Florida Georgia Line is scheduled for September 3rd. These are 2 of the concerts that are now under this Live Nation deal instead of the Atlantic City marketing arm that handled this before. And so you can look forward to those, July 23rd, September 3rd. I'm sure as we experienced, there will be a huge spike in hotel prices those nights. So put it on your calendar if you're interested in going to either of those concerts. If you want to see Toby Keith perform the legendary song Red Solo Cup, you can do that while holding a Red Solo Cup on the beach. Although, if you're carrying alcohol, like we discussed last episode, you will probably be told to pour it out. Any thoughts on Toby Keith or Florida Georgia Line?
So here's my one thought, and this is something you know much better than I. So it seems like you sort of mock their lack of musical diversity, but it seems like all of their beach concerts are country music. Am I wrong?
I
remember
5.
Rascal Flatts.
They had Maroon 5 once.
Oh, okay.
I think. I hope I'm not just making that up.
Seems like a lot of country. And, don't get me wrong, from what I can gather about South Jersey demographics, I'm sure that it's, pretty wildly popular around there. But it does seem weird that there's not a bit more diversity in the concerts.
So I agree with that. I've literally never heard a Florida Georgia Line song. Well, that's probably not true. I've probably heard one, and I just don't know that it's Florida Georgia Line. Toby Keith, I know more for Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill at Harrah's in Las Vegas, which I don't think is there anymore. But as far as music that is good to listen to while chilling on a beach, country's not a bad choice. Poppy sort of mainstream country is not a bad choice. Also, I'll put that out there. I mean, I went to Nashville and I had a great time listening to country cover bands at honky tonks in Nashville. So
I will give you that is probably true, and I'm probably the person who likes country less than most. I'm not a big country fan, but I do agree that it's probably better to know some other stuff when it's 100 degrees on the beach and you don't really want to be moving around too much and whatever.
Yeah, this sounds fine to me for that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go.
They're both popular artists. I mean, it seems like a perfectly reasonable get for Live Nation. It seems like they're doing a good job of fulfilling their end of the deal. So
what musical act? Because we very rarely go out of our way to go to an event.
No, yeah.
I mean, we scheduled our friend's bachelor party around AC Beer Fest. But other than that, have we ever gone to Atlantic City specifically for an event?
No. I don't think so.
So what musical act?
Have you gone? Did you ever go for like the? There's some hockey tournament there, right?
There used to be the ECAC college hockey tournament, and I talked about going many times and never did. I've talked about going to the Atlantic City Boardwalk Con and didn't go last year and probably won't go this year since it's a week before we're planning to go down. But no, I don't think I've ever gone specifically for an event. I mean, I've gone to a show or two in Atlantic City because they were going on a weekend that we happened to be there. But I'm trying. Yeah, so no, I've never really gone out of my way to go to an event.
And this is something we talked about when we were just down there, whatever, a month and a half ago, or whenever the last time we were down there was. 2 months ago? 3 months ago? 2 months ago.
Sure.
That, because there was some sort of boxing match in the Boardwalk Hall, and we're like, it would be really cool to go see, like, a fight in Boardwalk Hall, because, I don't know, the long history, that's one of the things that Boardwalk Hall is best known for, is hosting a lot of great boxing. But it didn't happen, and instead you won a hand pay in video poker.
I'll take that result over watching some boxing.
I mean, I like boxing, so I would have enjoyed going. But
so I also enjoy boxing, which is weird because I played hockey my entire life, and I am I'm totally like an anti-fighting in hockey pansy, more because I think that the staged fights are ridiculous and kind of useless, and UFC just makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even watch it. But I think that's more just the so much of what I see of UFC is a friend of mine who's really into it being like, did you hear about this guy breaking his leg on this other guy's leg? You got to see this. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be sick. So I don't know that it's necessarily the violence as much as just I just have a really weak stomach for injuries. Uh-huh. Whereas, boxing gloves are basically pillows, right? They're out there hitting each other with those, what were those things called? Those inflatable hand things that kids had for a while. Sock'em boppers. Sock'em boppers. That's a 90s kid reference for you. So
yeah, I'm actually quite surprised to hear that you like boxing. I absolutely would have never, ever put you down as someone who would enjoy the sweet science. But I quite enjoy MMA and boxing. So pretty much any combat sport I'm always down for.
So boxing, I think a lot of there's sort of an overlap of my boxing interest and Atlantic City interest in that there's sort of this romanticized history, right, of both those things. And
yeah, absolutely.
And for boxing, the history is it's another thing that the current state of boxing is not great necessarily, although big fights are still huge.
So I will say I don't think that's true. I will say the current state of boxing in the United States of America is not great, but boxing is still quite popular around the world, in Europe and in places like Mexico and in Asia. It's still very popular, but in the United States it isn't really as much.
Yeah, and then we grew up with it was all heavyweight, right? It was all the big heavyweight fights, and that's really, that I think somewhere along the line people realized that the heavyweight fights are kind of a lot of clutching and grabbing and not that exciting, and it's going.
I think the big problem with heavyweights is that there really hasn't been too many great heavyweights in recent history. So sort of, let's say, since Mike Tyson, great American heavyweights in recent history. And I think a lot of that has to do, and even before that probably, but a lot of that has to do that if you're like this, A+ athlete that is, a man who would be 6'5" and weigh 250 pounds, you're not going to be trying to make your living doing boxing when you can do something like football or basketball instead.
That's
and make way more money. That's just why America doesn't produce great heavyweights anymore, and all the great heavyweights are coming out of sort of, Central and Eastern Europe these days, or a lot of them are anyway.
And even, same argument for soccer, not to get so down into this rabbit hole that we've already gone down, but,
yeah.
Same thing with soccer. Anybody who's that fast and agile is a wide receiver in football and not out on the soccer field. That's just not the way that Americans prioritize their sports.
I actually have a lot of thoughts of that. I think it goes a bit deeper, but I think we're getting sort of too far off topic. But
we'll start a whole other podcast about weird, sort of alternative sports.
I will say I think a big problem with soccer is it's generally like a very white collar sport, and I don't think there's a lot of incentive for people to want to put their kids through the kind of soccer education that people get in other countries, like, having them drop out of school at 8 and stuff. I mean, not many people who are like you and me really want to have their kids do that and put all their eggs in the soccer basket.
Yeah, that's, you could teach a class on that.
Right.
Because there's so much going on there. But anyways, because, soccer is one of those sports like basketball where all you need is a soccer ball and you can play. But anyways, moving on.
Right.
So what I wanted to ask you was, is there any act that would get you to go out of your way to go to a weekend that you were not going to and brave the crowds and go to the beach for a beach concert in Atlantic City?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big music guy in general. I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah,
you're more into music than I am, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anybody that I would really go out of my way for. And
like the kind of bands that I really, really like would be like not great to listen to on the beach in like 100-degree weather.
Right. I mean, if like Coheed and Cambria played, I would have to go. But again, like I don't know that that's necessarily, like I'd rather see them in a small venue indoors than out on the beach. And they actually played in Asbury Park, I think, at an outdoor venue last year, and I didn't go. So, if I didn't go to some place that's half as far away as Atlantic City, I don't know why I say I'd go to Atlantic City.
It's a reason to go to Atlantic City.
That is a good point. I don't really need I don't really have a reason to go to Asbury Park. So, totally random thing that I'm just going to throw out at this point in the podcast, just because I want to plug something that I really like that is Atlantic City related, is there's a band that I only heard about because they followed our Twitter account. And I was like, who is this guy? And clicked on his link, and it's a band called Tough Turf, Tuffturf, just like the movie back in the day starring Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader. Their logo is the same logo as the movie. They just released a new album and are having an album release party at the Boneyard Bar and Grill on Saturday, April 30th at 8 p.m., and so their music, I don't really know how to describe it. And the way they describe it is nihilist new wave, which I think nails it. I mean, and so that's not everybody's cup of tea. I'm just going to, say very clearly, if you go there and you say you don't like it, I'm not going to be offended. But I have been listening to their stuff, like, on loop since I first heard it. And it's just, there's another band that was kind of similar to them, Hail Social, that I got super, super into, and then their lead singer was just this crazy dude who quit and started making, like, weird remixes of other songs. But anyways, if you're interested in that kind of music, check it out, toughturf.bandcamp.com. You can listen to all their stuff for free, and then they've got their album release party at the Boneyard Bar and Grill in Atlantic City on April 30th. So just a quick plug for an Atlantic City-based band. So that's something worth mentioning. So moving on to maybe the most interesting thing of the week is that Glenn Straub has somewhat come out of his shell. Does he need to come out of his shell? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know if he's really come out. I mean, he's always been out of his shell, I think.
Yeah, out of his shell. Take that however you want it. He has done a couple of interviews and talked about his plans and talked about things that are totally unrelated to his plans and his voting intentions, which we don't need to get into. But so a few things that came up in a Forbes article that's just an interview, just classic Q&A style. Here's the question, here's the answer. Some things that came up. He still wants Showboat, which I'm not sure that came out in that article. I'll look for another link. But he thinks that Showboat, or that Stockton College negotiated in bad faith, basically, in selling to to Bart Blatstein, and now he is trying to fight them in court. So he's still trying to get the Showboat, not giving up on that. I don't think that that's going to go anywhere. But anyways, Forbes interview, he said some stuff, and I think that's as accurate as I can sum that up. So he said, he's trying to get away from having Revel seen as a casino, which, I hate to break it to you, but it's a casino in a casino town. And basically he's saying, it's going to have all this other stuff. And he went into detail on what some of those things are. He wants to host art events similar to Art Basel in Miami. Obviously, he's Miami or South Florida based. He wants to build some kind of weird dome that'll host equestrian events 12 months a year. And how he's saying, down in Florida, they only have equestrian events a few months a year. We're going to have it 12 months a year because of our dome. They're going to do anti-aging treatments where they'll replace, this is a quote, they'll replace any organ in your body that's not doing well. So that's some dystopian future stuff. They're going to have frozen mountains and ski runs, which sounds cool, but they've tried to do that in the Meadowlands at the Xanadu / American Dream / whatever you want to call it, that has been incomplete for something like 8 or 10 years. So he's got a lot of ideas. He also said, all of this, taking all these ideas into consideration and how it's going to sort of make Revel this resort that's not a gambling place. Gambling is secondary. So his quote was, "That allows my daughters to accept the fact that their estates are not going into gaming facilities, but more into a category they'll be proud of." And so the Forbes interviewer, who was Susan Adams, said, kind of pushed him on it and said, "Oh, so you don't think gaming's something to be proud of, but you bought a casino?" And so he said, I don't think I also don't think gaming is something to be proud of. For every dollar wagered, you're guaranteed to lose 40%. It should only be entertainment," which I think, probably most people would agree with. It should only be entertainment, not a way of life. The Revel will not be known as a casino. It will be known as a resort with up to 3,700 rooms. So, all of that. He says so Susan Adams also asked him, Trump Taj Mahal was sort of the Revel of the 90s when it opened, and sort of this big thing that was supposed to usher in the future of Atlantic City, and quickly went bankrupt because it was so heavily leveraged. And so Glenn Straub said, we're totally debt free. He doesn't buy anything that he can't pay cash for. So I think that kind of sums up the interview. I'll link to it, but out of all that, there's a lot of sort of big ideas, long shot stuff that I assumed that he'd given up on when he announced that it was going to be a water park and an obstacle course, which is kind of the low-hanging fruit and not at all the big grand ideas that he had. And the latest thing is that he is now saying that the obstacle course portion of his water park obstacle course will be open on June 15th. He said that for a while, but now he's sort of doubling down. Ruben Kramer reported in the Press of Atlantic City that this will be a 3-story high obstacle course. Kramer's quote was, "Think Nickelodeon Guts meets American Ninja Warrior," which, thinking about it, it sounds kind of interesting. And so Straub says that it's going to show up in 2 weeks, guaranteed, he says, with everything done by June 15th. So, we talked sort of a little bit about the idea that can he really get this done by June 15th? He says, guaranteed. That's his words. What do you think? Are we going to see a 3-story high Nickelodeon Guts aggro crag by June 15th?
Maybe. I mean, I don't see why not. I don't think it'd be that hard to build.
Yeah, I'm sort of...
It's not, they have this massive entryway that is just open space, so...
Oh, that would be awesome if that's where that goes.
I think it is where it's going to go, right?
Now I'm excited about it. I was totally thinking this is dumb. You know what I want, Kyle? Is I want it to be an obstacle course that gets you to the casino.
You have to go up you have to like climb the wall to get into the casino.
You have to put on a little helmet and climb the aggro crag and dodge foam boulders and like American Gladiator type dudes with big Q-tips, whatever those things are called, trying to hit you and knock you down before you make it up to the casino. Or you can just go hit the elevator button, but that's no fun.
Well, unless you're in the hotel tower, and then you can't hit the elevator button, as we know.
Oh boy, whoever designed that, so sad.
The Revel.
So, wow, yeah, that actually makes me kind of excited for the obstacle course. Because that's... If you walked in... So the escalators and the sort of grandness of the entrance, it made a statement at the Revel. And it was class and grandeur. This would make a totally different statement, and that is a statement that I am 100% on board with. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Although I do worry about this idea that basically saying it shows up in 2 weeks, which would be, we'll say May 1st, effectively. I think this came out in earlier this week. And then they have 45 days, effectively, to put this thing together. So... that's not that much time. I mean that's a decent amount of time, actually.
Yeah, I think it's enough time. I don't think, there's a bunch of like the ropes courses or whatever around where I live now, and I don't think there's all that much to put in them together.
So, is this a recipe for success? Like what? It's so out there. I'm just confused about who the target demographic is.
Right. So I think there's a couple of things you said. So one, you seem surprised that Glenn Straub is saying like this kind of crazy shit, and you said you thought he kind of gave that up. But I think it's just Glenn Straub being Glenn Straub. I think he's always going to have these huge ideas, 98% of which are so far-fetched that they're not even almost worth talking about. But I think he's going to keep having them, and I just think that's who he is, and I think he's going to be happy to talk about them to whatever publication wants to come interview him.
He's going to live to be 120. Is that what he said? Did he say older than that?
I'm not sure. It'll have the cryogenesis going, so it's good. And the other thing you said about this being all over the place, I think that's exactly right. Like, every time I hear about everything he's going to say, it's like, I'm just reminded back to, taking classes as MBA, and it's like something that got drilled into our brains is like, you can't be everything to everyone. You need to find a niche and stick with it. And, that's not what he's doing. He's wants there to be a casino and nightclubs. Well, at least some nightclubs, not the nightclubs that were doing unsavory stuff, according to him. But also like these family water parks and obstacle courses and whatever else. And it's like he's trying to please absolutely everyone. And I think generally that doesn't end up well. But I'm interested to see what happens. If nothing else, it's going to be a wild ride, sort of Glenn Straub's wild ride.
Oh, that would be a great name for the casino.
That would be so good.
So he said 105. So the quote is, I might want to live to 105. After that, you shrivel up too much. Or you might want to see who wins the election when Trump's kid runs. Let's not get into that.
Which one, though? Which one?
That's a good point. There's so many options.
Didn't specify.
So he says that he still plays polo like he's 20 years old. Which, more power to him. I feel like I play hockey like I'm 50 years old. So, the other thing out of this whole Ruben Kramer article and Glenn Straub's week of quotes is they have not yet selected a casino operator. So if they hope to open by June 15th, it seems like that's something they should get on top of. But he says they're down to 2. And that's what they're going to choose between. There's no indication of who those 2 are. I won't even hazard a guess because I don't even really know who the players are.
Right.
Who sort of would be the free agents. But, I guess really it could kind of be anyone, right? So We'll see. It'll be interesting to see once he announces that, because I think that's an underrated aspect of all of this, because, as we said, Borg is just managed so well. The casino end of it is managed so well, and I feel like, Tropicana. Tropicana has been managed fairly well, and now you see them moving the management of Trump Taj Mahal to under that same company. Resorts is now managed by Mohegan Sun, and I feel like they're doing some interesting things. Maybe I only say that because they're giving me Friday night comps. So it'll be interesting to see who he picks. I mean, if he ends up picking someone like just totally out there, like, remember when, was it Poker Stars was trying to buy Atlantic Club?
Yeah, man. Did we didn't talk about it during the show, but Poker Stars is now the poker partner of Resorts.
Right. So
you can play Poker Stars in New Jersey now?
Yes. So I can't,
or soon.
I can't imagine that they would be the casino manager, but, that would be an out there choice. But I would assume he's going to go for somebody that has an easier route to...
Yeah, I don't think it would be Poker Stars.
To a casino license, yeah. So, any other thoughts on Stroud?
Seeing how they've already been rejected once for a casino license.
Yeah, that's probably not the way to go.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, I think he's going to continue having interviews done with them, and he's going to continue to say outlandish stuff. And at this point, I'm excited. I want to see what he does. And I'm not excited necessarily because I think it'll be good. And I'm not excited because it'll be bad. It's just going to be weird, I think, and I'm interested to see.
So, expanding on that, I think I'm really interested to see. It's probably going to be... I mean, I think Revel just begs you to spend time there if you give it a chance, because it's so... The public spaces are so well done and inviting and sort of interesting. Obviously, they didn't get enough people through the door to experience those things for them to actually convert people to be regular customers.
Right. I mean, they made a lot of big mistakes.
But, I'm going to want to go there when it opens. I'm going to want to go check it out and see what this obstacle course is. I don't know that I'm going to actually want to spend any money. Like, I may just go and be like, oh, hey, there's the obstacle course, and leave. So I can't really see myself doing much more than just sort of being a spectator. And that is kind of what worries me, is that it's going to be this thing that everybody goes and walks by and says, oh, so that's that. And then they leave. Although, I guess there's a tried and true history of that in Vegas. I mean, that's why there's a volcano in front of Mirage, and there's a big fountain in front of Bellagio, and whatever else you want to talk about, the Caesars show and the forum shops at Caesars. But, I'm the converting that to dollars, I'm a little skeptical, but I guess we'll see.
I mean, the reason I'm so interested is anything could happen. It could end up being, it's not going to be wildly successful, I think, but it could be reasonably successful, or it could be just like a complete train wreck. I have no idea.
If it is really successful, I will just totally tip my hat and say, this guy's just a business genius, and like he's just on another level from all of us.
I mean, I do think he's very business savvy. I mean, in episode number 1, I believe I said he was crazy, but I think he was crazy like a fox, and I think he's sort of proven that out with what's happened after that, with him buying the energy company and everything else. But I'm super interested. I mean, I think this is kind of like way outside of his comfort zone and the kind of stuff he usually does, so...
I'm with you 100%. I think if nothing else, it is so interesting. Every time he speaks, I want to read what he says, and I absolutely am just dying to see what he comes up with and go see what the new version of Revel looks like.
Yep.
So I posted a new blog post, and if I sound hesitant about that, it's because I posted it and it just landed with a resounding thud. So I made a post basically because a friend of ours emailed me saying, hey, I'm going to Atlantic City this weekend. I'm not a gambler. I'm not in any of the players' clubs. How do I find a discount room? And So my typical answer to how to find the best rates is, go gamble and then get the best rates on your next trip. Because, that's the truth. That's in a gambling town, that's the best way to get good rates. But, I've certainly looked in summers when my total rewards rates were in the $200 or $300 and gone through the whole process of trying to find discounts. So I figured, let me write that up in a blog post and see if anybody finds this interesting. And so I posted on Twitter. Nobody seemed interested. No retweets, no likes. I posted on the Facebook group, and people, nobody had anything to say. And it didn't get that many views. So, if you want to go see it, there are some tips there for you. Things like, going to Priceline Express deals and Hotwire Hot Rates, where you can kind of figure out what casino it is based on the amenities, if you know the amenities, or Hotel Tonight, where everything's posted at noon that day. There's some other discount options that you can get through Caesars, like if you're a military personnel, student, teacher, you can register with ID.me. That's actually something that I think I can't recommend enough. If you're a student, teacher, military personnel, or a first responder, you should register through ID.me because you can get 15% off your Caesars rooms. And I think that includes off of your discount. So if your room's not comped, but it's discounted, so say you have a Friday night that's $100, you can get your 15% off. So check that out. The one downside of that, which I've done because I did book once using that discount, is that if you use it, you cannot call them and rebook at a lower rate if the rate becomes lower. You actually have to cancel and then rebook. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyways, if you want to check that out, go check it out. It's under the Resources tab on the top menu of the site at doforawin.com. Just go to Resources and then click the link for finding discounted rooms, and you'll see all that description. There's also a description of some of the non-casino hotels just because they're typically cheaper. But, without getting too much into that, because I expect most of the people listening to this podcast don't need options for discounted rooms that are not provided directly by the casinos for their play. Because really, even if you just are a member of something like a Tropicana, you're still going to get the sale emails, right? Even if you're a Total Rewards member, you're still going to get the sale emails. So, for example, Trop just sent an email today saying, hey, we're doing a spring sale, and you go and it's $119 for next Friday, which is cheaper than you can get on like Hotels.com or any of those sites. So that's a very rambly way of saying to go check out our blog post. But I expect most of you don't need it, which probably speaks to the fact that you are bigger gamblers than most of the people who email me asking that question.
Yeah, I thought it was a valuable blog post. I think that it may not necessarily be valuable for the people who are listening right now, but hopefully it helps other people out there.
So the one thing I'm terrified is that somebody goes to like Trip by Wyndham, TRYP, which used to be the Ascot Motel, which was kind of a crap hole. Judging by like Yelp reviews, and Wyndham, got brought under this Wyndham umbrella and got a rebranding, and they did just enough to like close off the entry, the stairways, so that you actually have to go through the lobby to get to the stairways, so that they could call it a hotel and not a motel. Like all the doors still face outside, but they say technically it's a hotel. And somebody actually posted on Yelp or on TripAdvisor, one of the two, saying like, this is a motel, like calling this a hotel is ridiculous. And they responded like, actually, they pushed up their glasses and they said, well, actually, it's an enclosed entrance, so it is a hotel. Anyways, I'm terrified that someone will go there and be like, this is garbage, and you sent me there. So I put in the post that, I'm not endorsing these places. I'm just saying, like, these are cheap options. I do specifically say don't stay at the Annex at the Chelsea because that has just terrible reviews. But please, if you go, let us know. If you've been to any of these places and they suck, I will remove that from this blog post if I hear enough people say, and enough I mean like one or two, say,
right.
like, like Trip by Wyndham is crap, or like the Days Inn on the boardwalk is just like completely not. It's I walked in and I left right away because it just wasn't even worth spending a night. But I kind of went by the TripAdvisor reviews, and hopefully I'm not steering anybody totally wrong here.
No, honestly, I mean, we'd love to hear it because, like, we haven't stayed in many properties in Atlantic City that aren't casinos, and we're not particularly likely to, I wouldn't think, so.
Yeah, and I think it's useful because, especially if you're going during the summer, a lot of times those hotels beat the casino rates by quite a bit, and a lot of times they beat even my casino discounted rates by quite a bit. So I don't know. I mean, we're 50 minutes in. I don't know if you want to. A little more. If you want to talk about our future trip that we've mentioned a bit, we're talking about going May 19th to 20th, I think, and tried to plan a 2-night trip, and it seems like that might not work out.
May 20th to 21st.
Yeah, so a Friday into a Saturday. Yeah. So there was some talk of like you going. So you can't do Sunday, and I can't do Thursday.
Yeah, Saturday night's is tough for me just because of if I go during the week, it's a bit easier for my wife with my newly turned 6-month-old because he's in daycare during the weekdays. But if I went for a weekend night, like Saturday night, she'd have him all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and that would be tough.
Yeah, whereas I can't, like my wife.
Yeah, you drop your kid off at daycare every day, so you can't do a weekday.
Yeah, and my wife is already on her way to work before daycare even opens. So it's not like, unless she's gonna just leave the baby with a note saying like, please feed at 9 a.m. That's not an option. So we kind of tried to figure out some way to finagle it where, like some friends would go Thursday to Saturday and some people would go Friday to Sunday, but I don't know, it doesn't really seem like that's going to play out. I've jokingly said a few times, like, maybe we should just go to Vegas, but I don't think anybody's on board for that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. One thing that we've talked about with that is the potential of meeting up with anyone who is a listener who is interested. And, that could be just as simple as us tweeting regularly, hey, we're at this Pai poker table in wherever, or we're going to play Royal Derby at the Tropicana, which I'm just absolutely desperate to play. They posted a video that I posted on the Facebook group, reposted, that was just so corny, but so perfect that it was so good. I really want to go.
Like all those people have to be execs at Tropicana, right?
I think they're the hosts.
Oh, are they?
Because they posted right before they posted the video. They said like, which VIP host or which player development host do you want to win? And
like it was super obvious that they were not actors though, and they were people who worked at Tropicana.
Oh yes, it was great. So definitely go to our Facebook group and look at that. So if we're there on a night that works, we may also do sort of a meetup where we say, hey, we're going to be at a bar at 6 or whatever, grab a couple drinks, and then we'll go try to take over a craps table or take over a blackjack or a Pai Gow poker table. So look out for that on our social media. Certainly we'd post it in the Facebook group and on Due for a Win, on the Due for a Win Twitter, which is just at Due for a Win. And it would be great to see some people and put faces to names that have emailed us. So, I think we might as well go ahead and wrap this thing up, eh? Keep this episode pretty concise.
Yep.
So I just want to, continue to thank everybody who's posting to the Facebook group. If you see anything Atlantic City related, and you think it's worth discussing, go ahead and post it there. It's got, 30 some odd people who are all excited about Atlantic City and want to talk about it. So that's cool. That's at facebook.com/groups/DueForAWin. Obviously, our website's doforawin.com. That's where you'll find all the links that we talked about in this episode. You will find the blog post that I wrote that got no traction at all. And you can also post any comments that you want to post there. Our podcast, that's what this thing is, right? A podcast. That's on iTunes. You can search Due for a Win on iTunes. It's also on Stitcher Radio now. We've added it to Stitcher thanks to a suggestion from, I think, Mike C., who said we needed to get on Stitcher. So I said, hey, I'll do that. So I went ahead and got us on Stitcher. And after initially getting on Stitcher with a feed that apparently would not update, I think I fixed it. So hopefully this episode shows up on Stitcher. And then Twitter, like I said, @DoForAWin. Send any questions you have to doforawin@gmail.com. We may discuss them on the air. And just thanks, everybody, for listening. And if you're heading to Atlantic City this weekend or next weekend, have a good time and good luck at the tables.
Yep. Have a nice couple weeks, and we'll talk to you on weekend of May 6th. It was actually Ed that said we need to get on Stitcher.
Oh,
Not
shit.
Mike.
I was even thinking it was Ed.
Well, you can chop there and have a nice post episode soundbite.